Good evening. Jade Castro with the Black Wolves, and I have some special hosts and guests. I go by the specialist. I'm an MC, producer, promoter, and right-hand man to this guy. Yes, and then I have David Meza, special again. Hey, David, how you doing today?
Pretty good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well, man. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Indeed. So, I brought you onto the podcast because I feel you have a really great story that can inspire people and really help people with things that they have going on in their lives. Can you kind of give me a background about who you are, where you came from, and what you're doing today?
Yeah, so I'm going to try to give you the short version. So basically, I grew up out here in the Bay Area, pretty normal background as far as lower middle class. I had good working parents, but I did grow up around a lot of drugs and alcohol, and so the neighborhood that I grew up in, it wasn't known for, a lot of good things. There was a lot of gang activity, and so my family members were all into that stuff, and I was a little kid, and when I remember growing up, I remember loving sports, and then around about 8, 9, 10 years old, I started kind of like gravitating towards other things, right? And once I got into like middle school, that's where it kind of led me into, starting to, try drugs and alcohol, getting into gangs and getting into those type of activities. And then my life just took basically like a downhill spiral after that. And, went in and out of prison 5 times from when I was 18 to when I was 31. I mean, there was a point in my life where I couldn't even stay out on the streets for 90 days. I mean, it got to the point where I basically felt more comfortable. It sounds sad, and I know sometimes people don't understand it, but I felt more comfortable in there than out here on the streets. That's how bad it was.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, and so my mission now is obviously to help people get sober, to help people get out of the streets, to help people get off those that mindset and that criminal activity, and try to build, better lives through, either work or vocation, spirituality, physical fitness, how I know you. So yeah, man, I mean, my life has been up and down, and I've been through the gutter multiple times, and I finally got out of it. So
Yeah. Wow. From what I hear now is you're doing amazing things for the community and you're uplifting people. Kind of explain, what are you doing currently?
yeah, so I worked for numerous nonprofits. Right now I'm working for a nonprofit in East Palo Alto called Free at Last. And so what we do is we get people, for the most part, we try to get people off the street and also out of jail and prison. And we try to get them in there, get them sober. Once they get sober, we try to build them up into, give them a life to, as far as like maybe look for type of work, vocational training. If they don't have a GED, make sure they get into like some kind of education and try to set a good foundation for them to go out to the street and to be able to succeed,
Yeah.
So that way they have a chance. At least, like, I always tell people, I want to get people into like, not the finish line, the starting line.
Yeah.
That's what one of my mentors at my when I was in the program told me. He's like, I want to get you to the starting line so that way you can, create a future for yourself and your family and your community.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Appreciate that work. I mean, we need more people like you in our community that are helping our brothers and sisters that,
Our youth.
the
The youth, especially the youth. Yeah.
that are struggling.
Youth is like the old song Whitney Houston, our kids are our future, which is that you can't go wrong with that truth. They are our future, and if you don't have our kids going the right way now, then it's never going to happen. It's going to spiral down. Different generations going to do the same thing. You got to break the generation, the habits and teachings, and for you to be coming around and saying that you want to help your youth, man, that speaks wonders.
No, I mean, yeah, for sure, man. Like, I look at it like this: when I was doing bad, it was I'm not gonna say people didn't try to help me. There was people that tried to help me. I just couldn't get out of it, man. It's like when people ask me, like, how does it feel, to be addicted to drugs like that? And it's like, I always tell people, it's like, just imagine your soul, your soul is captured. You're like a slave to the substance, or you know, even in this era, like we're talking about the young people, it can be like, you know, gaming, social media, you know, stuff like that. But I did hard drugs where you'll see the effects. You know, you end up stealing, you end up committing crimes, you end up in and out of jail and prison. So to me, now looking back, it affects the community in a lot of ways, right? So drugs can affect not only yourself, obviously your spirit and your soul, but then it affects that family dynamics.
Yeah.
You know, people start stealing, people start lying, then it affects the neighborhood, then it affects the community, and then it in my opinion, I know it's biased now because now I'm sober and I'm looking back, but to me, I don't see nothing good out of it. And so at the same time, I never try to preach to young kids and say, hey, don't do this, don't do that. Because when I was young, I know that didn't work. If you tell me not to do something, I almost like, why to do it more for free?
I think we're all like that, right? The rebel in us, right?
Okay, now I want to do that. So we got to be very careful how we word things, you know? But yeah, that's my mission right now, man.
Okay. What are some things that you did to help you get sober and get out of jail? What are some things that you would recommend to do for children or adults that are watching this right now if they're in the same position you used to be?
That's a great question. So there's a lot of things we can do as far as individuals, right? Like the main thing I always tell people is it's the hardest thing is to ask for help. So when somebody's out on the street or somebody's, you know, doing bad or they're on drugs, or even if like they come from a good family and maybe the family doesn't accept it, right? They don't really want to ask for help because there's a lot of shame and guilt behind it. And so like I always tell people, if you can find either, you know, if you're fortunate enough to find like a counselor or a coach or somebody to talk to, that would probably be like the main thing to start with. Unfortunately, you know, some people don't have access to that. And like the programs that I worked with, most of the time we work with people that were like, you know, I want to say down like at the bottom, right? Meaning like they lost everything. They're either homeless, they're either, you know, out of prison or jail, have nowhere to go. And so like my thing is like I always tell people, it's unfortunately most of the time humans we learn when we're in a crisis.
Yeah.
And I wish that wasn't the case, but it's like I look around and it's like, man, like how you know, how many times do we have to hit our head on that wall, man, to finally like wake up, right? And for me, like I know you guys heard this quote where, you know, it's like doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, right? And that's how I felt when I was in addiction. So like I always tell people the best thing you can do is try to find ways to connect with someone, to ask for help. Obviously, if you're doing really bad, then there's a lot of programs out there that either they're nonprofits. Some of them you have to pay for, some of them, depending on insurance. And there is a lot of resources out there online now too. So it's like you can always look up online and you'll have like each county has a hotline to call, and they'll put you right in direct to like either some kind of counselor, case manager, social worker, something like that.
Yeah. What are some daily or weekly practices that help you nurture your spirit and your well-being right now?
To me, the most important one is meditation.
Okay.
And I started meditating in prison. That was my journey. That's where I started my journey, and I couldn't only do it for about a minute.
Okay.
I was to the point where I couldn't even sit down and just read, you know, because
anxiety.
What was that?
Anxiety.
Yeah, I always tell people. So people that were addicted to drugs, ex-drug addicts, stuff like that. A lot of times there's a lot of trauma growing up, right? So there's most of the time people that become addicted, they're trying to either escape reality, escape somewhere, either their body and their mind. Something happened to the point where they want to like detach from reality and they want to either drown themselves or they want to fill a void. Like when I tell people, like when I used to drink or do drugs, people ask me like, how did when did you know you were going to be addicted? I mean, no one starts off doing drugs, I want to be addicted, right?
Yeah.
For me, I knew it was when I would take it, when I got high, I just felt like there was no going back. And so like I always tell people, for me, the mind is very important. So trying to calm down the mind, whether it's breath work, meditation, visualization, reading. Like I have a morning routine that I can normally don't break. I mean, I'm pretty solid 7 days a week. For me, my morning routine is probably the most important thing because it sets the day up.
Yeah.
It gets me ready for what the day is going to throw at me.
What does your morning routine consist of?
So I wake up, I meditate, depending on, the day, but for the most part, anywhere from like 10 to 30 minutes. And then I either journal a little bit or I always read at least 30 minutes. And, the books that I read, it depends on what I'm trying to learn about. It could be psychology. It can be, learning about spirituality, learning about certain topics that I'm interested in. But I'm always trying to tell people like to read in the morning. I always want to read something like either nonfiction or something like educational, right?
Yeah.
Later on in the day, you can read whatever you want. But in the morning, I want to set that day like right. And then I want to be grounded and I want to be prepared for what's going to come.
Yeah. What's your advice to the youth, not just the youth, but the people that are, addicted or in too deep into some things that they're not supposed to be in? But what do you like to share with that, to build your journey?
That's a great question. I mean, I have a son that's 14, so I understand the social media thing, and there's been numerous back and forth between me and him, and it's a hard subject. I was working at this other organization in San Francisco where we were going and doing presentations in middle schools and high schools, and some of the schools have phones or like a lockbox that they put the phone in. And then I think that's really good. And then some of them don't. And I remember when I would go to a school that didn't have one.
Right.
I mean, you'll be able to see it.
Yeah. Phone's ringing.
I mean,
talking.
No one's looking at me. Everybody's like this. And so like the phones are powerful, right? These are powerful things. I mean, there's most people, I hope most people know that there's like psychologists and scientists are designing these things for us to continuously be on, right? The sad thing about the kids is that kids are younger. So they're younger, they're easily more influenced, their brain is not fully developed. So we have to be aware of those things, right? And for me, I know the answers and probably surprise you guys, but it starts with, I'm going to take myself and say it starts with myself, right?
Sure.
It starts with myself. Like when I'm with my son, I need to do the best I can to put this phone away.
Yeah.
And talk to him face to face,
yeah,
right, eye to eye. The last thing I want to do is, be on my social media and then telling him, hey, don't be on your phone, right? Yeah. So as a parent, that's something that I'm not perfect, I admit, but I'm always trying to get better at.
Brother, you were talking about, I'm going to say...
I think everybody.
Well, I think...
It's like my brother. I
think when we want to do something ourselves, right? And then we see our children look at us and reflect, like, hey, look, dad's doing it. Why can't I do it, right? And you're right. It all does start with us.
I remember, so when I was a kid, I remember my parents, my dad probably doesn't know this, but at the time, I just knew. So when he was doing drugs and telling me he wasn't, when he would come home, I instantly knew when he was drinking. So like, sometimes I think about, I'm like, kids are smart.
For sure. Smarter than they should be.
Smart. And so, and they're always watching us. So even if you're not like a father, if you have any kind of a younger brother or cousin, they're always going to watch us, right? So they're always going to try to mimic our behavior. And so to me, like what that question is, it starts with me setting a good example. And then obviously talking to my son, being able to communicate like, hey, be careful. There's a lot of, things online. There's a lot of scams. I always bring up like the fentanyl stuff and buying stuff online, because that's one thing right now that a lot of people don't realize. So a lot of the deaths that we're having, a lot of them are people using drugs on the streets, but there's some of them that are called poisonings, meaning that a lot of them are young people, unfortunately, that they're buying drugs on social media, right, or online, and they're thinking that it's like a Percocet or like a Xanax or something like that, and it's actually laced with fentanyl or made in Mexico, which sometimes have fentanyl in it, right? And so a lot of them are taking it and dying like that, overdosing. So, like, obviously, as a parent, that's a nightmare, right? So, my thing is try to have an open communication with our kids and setting a good example.
Yeah. I agree. It all starts with us, right? We are a reflection of our children. So if we do something bad, expect our children to do the same thing, right?
And then we haven't even talked about AI. I mean, imagine that. So we got social media now, and now we got AI coming out. So it's like, I always tell people now, it's like, hey, technology is taking off, and unfortunately, us spiritually, we're not evolving as fast.
Yeah.
And so, like, as a parent, as an adult now, I'm trying to do the best I can to be like aware and grounded about these things, and trying to set like the best example I can. But like I said, I'm not perfect, not telling people what to do, because I'm also a work in progress.
Yeah. What do you hope for people to learn or gain from your experiences and your story?
I think the main thing I'll tell people is that, and I know it sounds cliche, like, oh, if I can do it, you can do it. But when I tell people I never thought I was going to get out of that system.
Yeah.
I never thought I was going to get out the system. My mindset was already set. Either I was going to die doing that in that lifestyle, or end up in prison for the rest of my life. And there was times where I literally mentally accepted that. And I remember finally having my spiritual awakening and breaking out of it. And I was like, I basically saw myself like in my own funeral, and I was, and it was like kind of like a visualization where I saw myself in my funeral. And at that time, if I was to die, I saw, my mom, my dad, my son, and what would they say in my funeral?
Yeah.
What would they say?
Yes.
And that hit me right there. And it lit something in me to where it's like, you know what, I'm changing that story. Because at that point, all they could say was, yeah, he was pretty good when he was a kid, and then something happened, and then all of a sudden he was in and out of prison on drugs, and he died.
Yeah.
I just couldn't live with that. And so, for my story, I always tell people, like, anybody can change. Anybody can change. I never, ever give up on people. I always give people second, third, fourth, five chances, because, to be honest, people gave me so many chances. My parents could have given up on me so many times. I literally tried quitting drugs at least 1,000 times. Sometimes they were half-hearted, like, hey, I'm done, and an hour later, I was using again, or sometimes it was a month later or a week later. But it was to the point where there was something inside of me that wanted to be done, but I just couldn't. I couldn't break through the chains. It was like, I was like a slave to it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so, like, I always tell people, man, don't give up on yourself. A lot of times the hardest things that happen in your life it's kind of like a test, and it makes you who you are, and you learn from it.
How long have you been sober for?
In January, it'll be 6 years.
Congratulations, Brian. Oh man, congratulations. Do you feel that health and wellness attributes to you staying sober? And if so, what are things that you doing in your day-to-day life that you can't live without?
For sure, I would say some kind of movement. It doesn't have to be like lifting weights, but at least walking, hiking. I love sports. I used to play a lot of sports. Now I don't really play a lot of sports because I get hurt a lot, but working out, moving the body is really huge. And then also doing the best we can on our diets. Like, I'm Mexican-American, You're
I'm Filipino.
Okay.
What was to say?
We have good food.
Yeah.
So I'm not telling people how to eat, but one thing I do notice, and the more I study on this and try to learn about it, it does affect us, right? Like, I lost my grandpa a couple years ago, and it was due to like bad health, right? And I lost my other grandpa, and I lost my uncle. I lost my aunt 3 months ago.
My condolences.
Thank you. And I see my family, and everybody's taking blood pressure medication and diabetes, and it's just like, I don't want to get off topic here and go on the pharmaceutical companies, but it's like everybody's taking pills, right?
Yeah.
In my family, what I see. So I'm really passionate about that as far as trying to do better with our diets. And it doesn't, I always tell people with diet, it's way different than, like, for instance, I was doing hard drugs, and I quit using drugs, right? Just one day I stopped, didn't drink, didn't smoke, nothing, right?
Cold turkey?
Cold turkey. Okay. With food, you can't do that. You have to eat.
For sure.
It's one of the hardest things that it's a whole nother level, right? But we can get better little by little.
Yeah.
1% better, little by little, would actually do us a lot. It would take you a long way, right? So I tell people with diets, and I've done all kinds of diets and fasting and all this stuff, and I always try to simplify it now and just try to do one thing better, or eat one thing less of one thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's it. But it does play a big role in recovery and in spirituality and trying to just be a better human overall.
Okay. If people are looking to get in contact with you and they have questions about their health and wellness, because I know you're a personal trainer as well.
Yes.
Or if they have any questions regarding their situation, right? How can they reach you?
I do have an Instagram, David Meza 35 at 35, and then also free at last. So it's free, FREEATLAST.org.
Okay.
And then there's another program out here that I got to give a shout out because it helped me change my life, and it helps a lot of people. It's called Jericho. So Jericho, JERICHOCA for California.org.
Okay.
And those two programs right there, I mean, they're out here in the Bay Area, but they'll take people from just about anywhere. And I'm always there, and you can always reach me there too.
Okay. And is there any books that you recommend anybody pick up and read right now?
I mean, it all depends on what you're trying to learn, right? There's so many books. When it comes to, like, for instance, people always ask me about, like, you know, habits and stuff like that. And obviously, Atomic Habits, I think it's a really good book.
That's so funny that you said that our last guest talked about Atomic Habits as well.
And to me, when I read it, I was already sober for years, right? But I was like, wow, this is some of the stuff that we teach.
Yeah.
You know, like the cues and the behavior changes and stuff like that. But yeah, as far as that, I recommend that. On this more of a spirituality note, I'm really big on, like, Joe Dispenza's work. You know, I don't know if you guys know about him, stuff like that. Yeah, so check him out. He's really, I highly advise him.
Okay. And then last but not least, do you have any positive quotes or affirmations that you'd like our guests to listen or hear?
I think the most important belief is to believe in yourself. Because without believing in yourself, it's going to be very hard to withstand and be resilient, because life is going to throw things at you. And it's not about, you know, sometimes people think positive thinking is about, you know, thinking that everything's going to work out. I look at positive thinking more as, like, no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
So,
Nice. Well, that was great. I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Right. Again, if you want to reach David Meza, we will definitely post his Instagram. With that being said, we appreciate you guys, Wolfpack. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And this is the Black Wolves. Love you guys.